Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 54. Gregg Ritz, Hunt Masters. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Jana Waller from Skullbound TV, and you're listening to my favorite podcast on Stitcher, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to the show. This is Jay Scott, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, back again to do another episode, another amazing guest today. But first, I'd like to tell you that I've got Dusty Phillips, our field correspondent from Ohio, on the other line from Chubby Tines Outdoors. Dusty, what's happening?
You know, I just got done cruising Facebook and, checking out some things and checking out some awesome hunters that I've been fortunate enough to be in contact with. And, there's a lot of things going on in the woods right now. A lot, it's getting active. You got fawns running around. You got velvet antlers running around. You got trespassers running around. You're seeing everything right now on trail cam. Everybody's got their trail cams out, and there's just a lot going on in the woods. And I'm liking everybody's posts, and we definitely enjoy it at the Big Buck Registry to see the fawns and to see the nice bucks that are up and comers, and it's just I'm enjoying that right now.
Yep.
What's going on with you, Jay?
Yeah, well, I took a ride the other day in my car. It was about 11 o'clock. Took a back road to the next town over, and I don't know why, but I saw 3 fox and a big deer all around 11 o'clock during the day. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is kind of weird. But they're saying that the critters of the woods, notice I said critters. I like that term.
Yeah.
They're starting to pick up on the human activity in the morning and in the evening. So they're moving throughout the midday.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it more here in Ohio than ever,
Interesting.
And you brought that up, and that just made me think that you're right. I have seen a lot of activity around 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing phenomenal crops here in Ohio. The soybeans are thriving. The corn's, I say knee high by the 4th of July. I think it's going to be like neck high by 4th of July. The rains hit us just right. They've side dressed the corn here, and it's really, really taken off. So I'm expecting that once the crops come on, that it's going to be a phenomenal year, and the herds of deer are going to be eating well and have some potential to, have some big weights along with some nice antlers.
That's awesome. I've heard good things about we had the right amount of rain, and the mass crop's probably going to be pretty good. We've had plenty of rain this season, but we've had great weather too in between. So I'm looking forward to a great season, and I think the ticks got knocked down pretty good because of the longer snow cover that we had here. So it's really developing into going to a good deer season, and it's only July technically.
Right.
So,
yeah, I'm seeing a lot of pictures, a lot of trail cam pictures with ticks on the deer's ears.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing that they get on the ears like that. And I see something real interesting that somebody posted, that this one doe in particular had rubbed her neck so much with her ears trying to get them ticks off that she'd made a raw spot on her neck. That was interesting, that they go the extra mile trying to get them ticks off. And I know they bother them, but, I'm seeing more ticks this year than I have in a while.
Oh, is that right?
Sounds like New Hampshire that the ticks are, a lot of them has not come back because of the cold winter.
I feel that way. My backyard for the last 4 or 5 years, I could time it where we'd be covered. And this year, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I heard something. I'm going to say something. I heard something that you take dry ice, like a pound of dry ice, put it in a container, like a Tupperware bowl, and cut some holes in the top, and just throw it out in your backyard, and the ticks will actually come to that carbon monoxide, and possibility that you could get rid of several hundred ticks in your backyard.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, something to try. If you try it, let us know and give us a report on that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think Dr. Grant Woods, one of our guests, not too long ago, did that on an experiment on his land down there, and it looked like it worked because it was covered. It was absolutely covered.
Yeah, that's something interesting, and something that you can try out.
Yep. Dusty, you ever heard of Gregg Ritz from Hunt Masters?
Come on now, Jay. If you're a hunter, you know who Gregg Ritz is.
I know. I don't even need to ask the question, but I need to kind of prep the show. So people can understand where we're going with this. But yeah, Gregg Ritz is joining us tonight.
I'm super excited. And Greg, thank you for, taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us here at the Big Buck Registry. And, Jay, I think we need to prepare for some awesome tips and tricks in the whitetail woods tonight.
Yep. Ritz's rules. That's how we describe it. Trial and error, learning, screwing up, basically making mistakes in the woods, and just kind of making a mental notes of the rules that you play by. I think we all do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna throw this out there. I'll guarantee you, and I think everybody that hunts is going to say this. I'll guarantee you that you're going to make huge mistakes in the whitetail woods.
Always.
But, you dust them off, and you learn from mistakes, and you better your hunting.
Right. And that just goes for life, too. I don't think I've ever done anything right until I did it wrong.
Right. And I think we're going to see that Gregg Ritz learns from his mistakes.
Yeah. And he's going to tell us all the things he's learned about over the years. And then he's surrounded himself through a new venture called Wildcom, where he is basically in tune with some of the best talent that's out there on TV and not on TV, just great hunters in general. And he talks to them and he learns from them. He studies them to apply it to his own thing. Kind of like, well, frankly, what we're doing here. We're studying other hunters through verbal interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been around. Thompson Center,
been around for a long time in the hunting industry. So he knows lots and lots of people. And
it seemed like I've seen something 17 years on the TV, in the outdoor industry. That's phenomenal.
It's a lot. And he's well connected and he knows a lot about hunting.
We see Greg around. You follow him on Twitter, Facebook, and all the social media, and you're going to learn something from Greg. Just by being connected with him on social media.
Absolutely. Well, I don't really want to wait too much longer. I really want to talk to Greg. Let's get him on the phone.
Absolutely.
All right. Gregg Ritz, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate being part of the podcast.
We're psyched to have you, man. It's quite an honor. I was cruising through Twitter, and sometimes you flick the screen once you get to the Twitter account, and there, lo and behold, there's Gregg Ritz from New Hampshire. And it's not very often I get to talk to another hunter from New Hampshire. So I was like, this is the guy we got to have on the show, Dusty.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. And it was interesting, in the, if you want to call it professional hunter community, most of the guys are living in the Midwest or living down south. There aren't a lot of guys up here in the Northeast because the style of hunting up here and, of course, the quantity of big deer is a lot different than the deer factory out, say, in Ohio.
Right.
Easy now. Deer factory.
Yeah, Deer Factory.
Deer Factory.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now, Dusty, do you look down upon that when we say that about Ohio?
I don't, and I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at. As far as the nice whitetails, it's not about killing a giant every year, and if you do, though, it's very fortunate and it's an honor. But I don't know if we call it a deer factory.
No, okay.
Yeah, we're fortunate that the crop fields are here, and that's not New Hampshire,
right?
No, it's agriculture in the Midwest that really creates the phenomenal genetics and the deer density because there's just so much more for these deer to feed on. And Jay, living up here in New Hampshire, really in New England in general, you drive down the highway, it's like a tunnel. Yeah, I mean, you got trees right to the side of the road, so you're hunting big timber whitetails, which entirely different strategy. We're not hunting over food plots and cut cornfields. We're tracking deer and looking for little white oak ridge tops, and it takes a lot more effort on the scouting side, I think, to locate that mature buck.
Right, but I do enjoy it. I mean, after years and years spent in the woods, I can't imagine it any other way. I mean, I just love it. I just love the way New Hampshire's set up. But then again, I haven't hunted a lot of other places, and that's why I have to live vicariously through others like yourself.
Well, one of the greatest things I like about New Hampshire, and you'll really appreciate this, is, you'll go walking a mile, back in big timber, and you're looking for a good place to set up, and then all of a sudden there's a stone wall.
Right.
Just in the middle of the timber.
Out of nowhere.
And, out of nowhere. And obviously that stone wall, represents an old homestead in an area that originally was timbered and farmed, and those stones were were picked up out of the field and piled on the stone wall. And of course, generations later, when nature reclaimed itself, now we have the big timber. But it's really steeped in history hunting up in this part of the world.
It is, and when you find one of those old cellar holes, you got to be careful because you could end up in the cellar hole and not get a way out. But even worse, there might be an old well around, and those are dangerous. And actually, there are some big ones out there.
Well, I got to tell you, when I moved to New Hampshire, gosh, it was like 17 years ago when I moved up to work for Thompson Center Arms. I was just their national sales manager. I was, in fact, funny enough, I was living in Ohio, of all things.
Oh, no kidding.
And, I was just north of Cincinnati in an area called Fairfield. And, it's just a phenomenal big buck area. And I covered Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Kentucky as a sales rep. And so I moved up here. So to me, whitetail hunting was different in Ohio. And coming up here and you start hanging out at the gun stores and talking to guys and going over to Kittery Trading Post.
Yep.
And, guys are talking about, man, rough year this year, I killed 164. And I look at the guy, I'm thinking, man, he must have a heck of a collection of trophies. Another guy going, yeah, well, I had a pretty good year. I shot a 187, but not like super enthusiastic. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah, 1,200. And I'm like, well, I know what that is. Turns out to talk about weight,
right.
about inches of the antlers.
It is a different perspective based off of where you live in the United States. It really is.
Yeah.
Yep. What gets you out of bed in the morning, Gregg?
I'm motivated by a lot of things, and I think what drives me the most is trying to contribute in some form or fashion to this industry. I've been blessed to make a great living in this industry, and I've worked as a manufacturer sales representative for some of the best lines in the country, Leupold and Remington and Maglite and Osler, and then I went and ran Thompson Center for 12 years, and then I was president of Smith & Wesson for a couple years on the long gun division. And I'm a relatively young guy, and I feel that I've got an opportunity to create a legacy in this industry. And, my 10-year Thompson Center, I can say that I helped introduce almost 5 million people to the sport of muzzleloading. And then I ran sport and archery for 3 years, and I helped create the legislation and introduce more people to the sport of bow hunting, through the opportunities generated through these new crossbow seasons. So, now my focus is youth.
Gotcha.
I've got 3 girls. They're 12, 10, and 8. All of them shoot vertical bows and crossbows and air rifles and 22s. And I really feel compelled to try to utilize, my family and my contacts and my passion for the industry to recruit more people to our sport.
Awesome. That's a great reason to get out of bed. Just every day.
Yeah.
Makes it easy.
Well, it's great to give back. And when you guys know, because you've been around young people and you've been around just new people coming into the sport. I had dinner last night with a couple friends of mine that I work out at the local CrossFit gym at.
Yep.
And these guys are like new into bow hunting. And one guy's never killed a deer with a bow, killed one deer with a gun. But to hear their enthusiasm and their passion, just one night to just kind of share my stories and whatever I can do to enhance their experiences. I know they walked away, and if they can recruit 1 or 2 more people to hunt with them, that's a legacy to the sport.
Absolutely. No question about it. What was it like growing up in Maryland?
Maryland is a really overlooked state from a resource standpoint. They have, most people think of Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland. Certainly Under Armour is located down there, so people are familiar with Baltimore. But you also have Washington, D.C., so they think of big city and congestion.
Right.
You get outside of those 2 areas, you have rural America, just like Ohio and the Midwest. You go down the Eastern Shore, it's a completely different demographic down there. And then you got Western Maryland up in the mountains, up in Garrett County.
Right.
I hunted it all growing up. And it's just got a great, natural resource for people who like to hunt and fish. And guys, they've got some big bucks. They really
Right.
do. And I think people focus on the Midwest for big deer, but anymore, if you manage whitetails, there's probably not a state in this country that can't produce, a giant deer.
Right. Did you hunt a lot as a kid?
I killed my first deer when I was 12 with a bow.
Interesting.
And I got into bow hunting when I was 11. I was a Boy Scout, so I shot
Sure.
when I was young. And my next door neighbor kind of took me under his wing. And of course, he was a former Marine, so you can imagine what I went through. There wasn't anything done easy.
Right.
We had to make sure we walked over the next mountain. But I spent a lot of time hunting down the eastern shore of Maryland for sick deer.
Oh wow, that's different.
And,
Interesting.
A lot of people don't really know what sick deer are. Of course, these are they're fair chase wild sick deer. In 1922, they imported 22 deer from Japan, sick deer, and put them on James Island, and then they swam off the island. And, there's 3 counties, Dorchester being the biggest, that actually have a huntable population of sick deer, and they are genetically related to elk. But they only weigh like 120 pounds live weight. They're a very small animal.
Yeah.
And they have a very European regal look, but they bugle, like an elk. It's a really fascinating animal.
I heard, we were speaking to another host or a guest, and they were telling us about the sick deer and how they end up bugling like an elk. And also, they are genetically related. That's very interesting.
They are. And, they're very nomadic. They don't make, like hunting a whitetail, if you can get a non-pressured whitetail or an early season or late season deer that's coming to food, you can pattern the deer, certainly with the use of trail cameras, right?
Yeah.
You can dial it in and know where to set up and hunt. That does not work for sick deer. They are very nomadic. They live in the swamp, and they're very, very difficult to kill. So that was a fun challenge and kind of a big world for me. When you're in your teens growing up and you're hunting blackwater refuge and thousands of acres of swamp, and besides, shooting sick deer, we're shooting a lot of waterfowl at the same time.
Right. That must have been some great territory to like hone your skills as a youth.
It was. And, and then, also growing up, I'd take 10 days to 2 weeks, and I would go to Virginia, and I would hunt George Washington National Forest, which is 1 million acres of public land. So I really grew up as a public land hunter. Across the street from where I lived was a reservoir, which is public land bow hunting, and then I'd go to George Washington National Forest, and we'd backpack in. And,
awesome.
We would hunt the muzzleloader in the gun season because they were back-to-back. And so I really cut my teeth on big mountain hunting, which is really what you deal with here in New Hampshire. Big timber, big mountains, and you don't have the food plots and cornfields and all to kind of funnel the deer. You had to go find the briar thicket they were bedding down in, or the white oak ridgetop they were eating on.
Gotcha. That's amazing. So you grew up in Maryland, and where did you go from there? Did you end up going to college, military? What'd you do?
Yeah, so I went to college at Ohio Wesleyan in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Now, a lot of people say, well, how'd you go from Maryland to Ohio? Well, my dad grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where he was born and raised. So, I had family out there. And it was a great, small liberal arts school. I had a wonderful experience there. Started a shooting team out there, which, really fueled my passion for being a shotgunner, which, led to, 2 years working with a U.S. shooting team out at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. But every weekend that I could, I went down to the family farm in Hillsboro, Ohio, which is, southwest Ohio.
Neat.
And it was then that I would say I understood for the first time, what a monster buck was.
Right.
Because prior to that, I killed, your 6s and your 8s and probably every spike that walked by me.
Right.
And
right,
I
sure.
didn't know deer management. I just, if it had horns on it or antlers, I shot it. And then I started to understand, because it was private land, that if I passed deer and I allowed them to grow to a more mature level, there was a greater sense of accomplishment.
That's something that every hunter needs to, that's kind of like a tip or a point right there. That management, you pass a good one and kill a great one. Just had to point that out.
I know in the story that really comes to mind, so the first deer I ever had mounted was about a 140-inch deer taken off the family farm in Ohio. First token young whitetail with a bow. And what was interesting is, I found this deer, and again, this is pre-trail cameras, right? So when I say found the deer, I saw him from a tree stand, found him, right? And then you would, go to school, back in, August and September, you start looking at deer in velvet, and I really wish I had trail cameras back then, but, I knew the deer was living on the property, and it took 3 years just kind of watching what this deer did, and I watched this deer grow from, what I now know would be like a 110, 120 to a 142-inch deer, over the course of a few years. And that was the first connection I had to an individual whitetail, hunting one deer. And really that's how our sport has evolved now, as opposed to random luck. With the aid of trail cameras and really sound game management, people now are identifying deer, they're naming deer, they're invested in, specific whitetails, and they wait till they hit that mature level before they harvest them. And that was my first experience, back when I was a sophomore in college.
That's a pretty good college experience to have a great opportunity to hunt some big whitetails. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Hey, Mom and Dad, I'm going to go off to college. See you later.
Yep, exactly. So, I graduated in 4 years, and unfortunately, was able to graduate with honors, but also put a couple big bucks on the wall in the meantime.
Oh, man, what a great college experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So from Ohio, where did you go after college?
When I grew up, my dad was in the printing business, and so I was exposed to the graphic arts and printing world, when I was a young kid. He'd take me to work, and so I had exposure there. So when I was graduating college, I had an opportunity to go work for Winchester Ammunition as one of their pro shooters and one of the guys who called on dealers and worked on ranges. And and I really was interested in that, especially as I pursue my Olympic shooting career. But when I really sat back and, of course, with good counsel from my parents, that's fun for a couple of years, but where is that going to lead you later in life? What kind of experience is that going to give you? And so, I took their sound advice. And I ended up going to Florida and working in the graphic arts and printing business because I didn't want to work in the same company as my father. So I used the skill I had growing up in my degree, and I didn't know much. I worked third shift. I worked a graveyard shift.
Oh, wow.
So I worked, I worked 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which wasn't all that bad. I get off at daybreak, and I go scuba diving off the beach and try to grab some lobsters.
Sure.
But, that lasted a couple of years until I could break into this industry.
Gotcha. Now, what drove you to get into the industry from there? It sounds like you had some experiences growing up and college. And did you ever kind of have in the back of your head that this is someplace I need to be at some point?
No question. When I graduated college, it took me a while to figure out my role in that I could play in the industry and have fun and feel fulfilled and make some money. So I started off as a manufacturer sales representative, and it took me 2 years to get hired. And then there's a company out of Maryland called GB Stump Associates, it's still around today, and they had Leupold and Maglite and Nozzlers. They had some big lines, but Remington Arms at that time decided to go to manufacturers or outside sales agencies, and they needed some dealer guys. And I spent a couple of years developing contacts, and while I was in the printing business, just basically knocking on doors. And finally, one of those doors opened up, and George Stump, owner of the company, said, Greg, you stayed in touch for 2 years. We now have an opportunity. If you want to be a dealer guy and stock shelves with ammunition and work promotions and do basically the grunt work, he said, I can bring you on. And I said, great. So I started off in Pennsylvania. Then I got, moved from there to Ohio, and my, experience grew. But that really galvanized for me the fact that I needed to make a career in this industry because it was in my blood. Right.
Pretty straightforward. So Maryland to Ohio to Florida to Pennsylvania back to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All trails led back to Ohio. Maybe it has something to do with big deer.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, listening to some other podcasts that you've been on, I heard this term, and I need you to clarify it for me. Ritz's rules. Tell me about Ritz's rules.
That's funny. So, I think I am the most creative mistake maker ever born on this earth. And what I mean by that is I try not to make the same mistake twice, but I'm really creative on finding other ways to make errors.
Gotcha. All right.
And through that, from a whitetail perspective, I try to reflect on every experience I have with a deer. I keep endless journals and notes on what are the weather patterns, how did I understand, when did I have certain sightings? It's getting a lot easier today, right? Because you have, software companies like HuntForce that can organize my trail camera photos and create a repository of information. But through that, I've developed some pretty specific ways that I like to hunt whitetails. And, number one Ritz rule is after 3 days hunting a stand, I don't care when it is, what it is, if things are good, even if the wind's good, I don't hunt the stand the fourth day.
Uh-huh.
And I have learned that pressure is the most important factor on harvesting a mature whitetail.
Gotcha.
And so many people, and you guys can relate to this, if they don't see a deer, they don't feel that they ever have polluted the area or affected or pressured the area, right? They just, I didn't see any deer, so obviously I didn't see any deer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
sure.
Anytime you walk in the woods, you imprint that woods with scent, noise, movement. You are contaminating the area. And, I really, really work on, when I sit on the stand, I hunt to kill guys.
Yep.
That's what I do.
Right.
I don't go onto a stand blind like I used to growing up. But I don't just go out to say, maybe something will happen. I sit for a specific reason.
Right. Gotcha.
And, so I've learned over time to kind of create this rule book for myself on, I never hunt about a wind. So if I'm in a stand, I can't tell you how many huddles I go through, right? Checking the wind. And if it starts to turn on me, strip it down and I'm out of there.
Interesting. So you'll just stop. Nope, I'm out.
Right there. Yep.
Okay.
I'll get down. It might be prime time now. The cameraman look at me and go, really? Greg, we've been set up for an hour. Doesn't matter. If that mature deer knows we're hunting him, he gets one nose full, we've blown it.
Right.
So it's so what I try to do, and I don't know how you apply this, Jay, to hunt in New Hampshire. I know it's entirely different.
Right.
I find an area that I feel is in the core area of mature whitetail. Now that core area expands during the rut and contracts early and late season, right? But it's his home base. He feels secure, and there's a high level of activity, whether it's nighttime or daytime, doesn't matter. There's just an activity. Once I find that area, then what I do is I hang stands for all the various wind locations and the ability to come in and out of those stands from various locations, so I don't continue to follow the same path in and out, in and out, in and out. And then what I do is I hunt that area day in and day out, but I just never try to repeat the same stand more than 2 or 3 days in a row.
Gotcha. That seems like a good rule.
That's awesome rule.
Yeah. I've always felt that once you're in their habitat, you're now disturbing it, no matter how hard you try not to, in some way, shape, or form. And
you really have to think about how you do it. How many times we sit till dark or we sit till noon and okay, time to get down. What do? We lower our bow, lower our gun. Sometimes we throw our pack down and we just walk out.
Sure.
Why do we sneak in and spray our boots and we try to be covert going in and we walk out like a herd of elephants?
That's so me. Right? Man. That is so me.
Yeah,
I know exactly
we're
what you're
tired,
talking
we're
about.
hungry,
Right.
We're disappointed, whatever. So I try to whatever I do going in, I try to go out. I also try to go out a different way than I go in. Even if I just circle and go out of my way, I try not to, double the contamination that I lay on the ground.
Sure.
Yeah, Greg, that's you're sharing some awesome information there. A lot of hunters don't realize what it takes to become more successful on a mature whitetail, and these tips right here are phenomenal for upping your success.
Yeah, I like those tips.
I've hunted animals all over the world in some pretty exotic, crazy locations, and I will put a whitetail against any animal in the world as far as their ability to adapt pressure.
Interesting. Because you have hunted all over the world. You've taken numerous types of species, so that's interesting that you would say that. I didn't know that.
And I've seen some crazy. I got to tell you guys a crazy story because I was over at Kittery Trading Post this past weekend with Lee and Tiffany, and we all get swapping stories together. And we were just talking about how deer adapt pressure. So this was actually Ohio, and pulled to a farm I had access to, and it is a huge CRP field in front of me, and then just to the left of me there was a fence line, and then there started a cut cornfield, and that ended in some timber, and I knew the deer liked to be in the CRP. And so what I tried to do was circle around the CRP and get back in the timber. But anyway, I didn't own the cornfield, or I didn't have rights to hunt the cornfield. And I saw a guy sitting on the timber on the edge of this cornfield, I don't know, 300 yards away. He was already in the stand. I was running late to where I wanted to hunt, and I'm getting all suited up, right? Keep all my clothes in Rubbermaid containers, set tight bags, and putting everything on, doing everything right. I look out, and a doe and two fawns pop up out of the CRP. So I'm watching them. This was still kind of like mid-October, so the corn had been down for a few weeks, but the rut hadn't kicked in. But I'm just kind of watching them. Don't want to spook them. They're 200 yards from, right?
Sure.
So they're milling around the CRP, and they head over to the fence line that divides the CRP of the cornfield. Then they start walking down the fence line towards the hunter, and I'm like, oh, this ought to get interesting, because this guy was kind of sitting in the corner. I'm like, well, if he's doe hunting, he's going to take this doe, and I'm going to watch this. And I'm watching it, and these deer get to probably like 100 yards from this guy. He doesn't see him yet because they're on the CRP side of the fence line.
Yeah.
And then things kind of start to thin out as he gets in the timber. These deer, no kidding, get on their elbows. They commando crawl 75 or 100 yards down the fence line, so they clear the guy, they stand up, and they walk in the timber.
Wow.
And you got to see this all unfold from a distance.
I got to see
Holy
this unfold.
smokes.
So these deer knew this guy was in the stand. They adapted to him. They weren't spooked. They weren't nervous. They were just like, that's danger. When I get close to this is how I... So I'm sure that guy sat in the stand and never knew those deer were there.
Right. They had a plan.
So you got to wonder how many times did that happen to us?
Of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course. Yes. I mean, those deer had a plan from the minute they even sensed danger.
That's right.
And that hunter had no idea.
No, he had no idea. I had another interesting story on pressure. I was hunting in Oklahoma, and I was hunting a really good deer. It's like 160-inch 10-point. My buddy and I were like teaming up on this. This was actually his property. He'd invited me. And so we had trail cameras out. This wasn't that long ago. And we started to get daylight pictures because I won't hunt a mature whitetail until they're day walkers. Why go in there when they're just nocturnal activity? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yep.
So anyway, he became a day walker, and so we're like, okay, time to get involved. Time to dial this deer in and kill him. So we set our stands up, go out early in the next morning, pull up to the gate, open the gate, walk on in, try to be stealth. Sit in our stands, nothing. Man, what the heck happened? Sit the second day, nothing. So we're like, okay, let's not pressure it. Let's let the third day rest, and then we'll just slip in and get trail camera. Slip in the third day. So the first day he came in the evening in dark. Second day he came in the dark. The third day came in the daylight. Like, well, we didn't hunt the third day. So like, well, wonder if we're bumping him going in. So we tried, so we got to open the gate, went through the gate and circle around. So anyway, this goes on for a week, and it was the same pattern. Whenever we didn't go in to hunt, he was in the day. And so I'll fast forward to the moral of the story. We finally decide last day of the hunt, what are we going to do? We got to do something different, right?
Right, of course.
So we pull up in the dark, and we're like, okay, we're getting in super early this time. Pull up the dark, get dressed, head over the gate, and just as my buddy was putting his hand on the gate, I said, stop. He goes, what? I said, don't open the gate. He goes, what do you mean don't open the gate? I said, you know what, for a week now, we've been opening that gate, and that gate squeaks. He goes, you're crazy. So we're hunting 500 yards away. I said, that doesn't mean the deer's 500 yards away.
Right.
He goes, okay. So we climb over the fence, don't open the gate, we kill the deer.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Because of a squeaky fence.
That was educating.
That's right. That was alerting him to danger. So that was kind of his early warning sign. And the reason for telling the story, and I've done this in many seminars, is what do we all do that announces our presence to the deer prior to us getting to our stand?
Right. That's such a great message. I spent some time in northern New Hampshire in March one year, basically at a snowmobile hunting camp area, northern New Hampshire.
Okay.
And one of the things that I realized about deer when I was up there is that deer respond to change. And when I say that, it doesn't sound like much, but this is what I mean. We would be standing off of the deck at this deer camp / snowmobile camp. The snow on the ground. We're in the deep woods. And the deer are herded up in this area. And a lot of the owner of the camp would feed the deer during the winter. He'd go out. He had basically just a piece of cardboard. He'd lay it down on the ground, and he'd pour some corn on it, and he'd literally bang on the bucket and say, come here, here you go, girls. And all of a sudden, they'd be coming around from all over. Now, granted, their mannerisms might be a little different this time of year, but we could be standing near them, just off the porch, talking, just kind of chit-chatting, not making any sudden move, but just doing our normal thing. They'd still come in within 70 yards of us to eat. The minute the minute we stop talking, they get spooked and leave.
Yep.
If we moved inside while they were there, they'd get spooked and leave. If we were inside and came out and they were out, they'd get spooked and left. It's the same thing over and over. So I realized that simply changing your environment will change the way the whitetail sees you, and it's very subtle. Something so basic. So it's not that they even care that you're there, but if you change that you're there, now they're onto you.
I tell you something that I've changed in the last couple of years that has made a difference in what I do. I own, some ground in Ohio and I own some ground in Illinois and Iowa. And I used to always use electric vehicles to hunt. Gotta go stealth. Gotta go quiet, right?
Right.
And I don't do that anymore. I use my Yamaha Grizzly 4-wheeler to go run my cameras, and I don't wind it up or go fast. But what happened was I was spooking this, so they wouldn't hear me coming, but if they ever saw me, they would turn inside out because I never announced my presence.
Right.
And so now you think of how much time you spend on a farm. You're running trail cameras, you're shed hunting, I'm putting food plots in, I'm managing the the tree stands. And this really dawned on me, and it was so obvious for all the years I've hunted in Texas, that the outfitters or guys would always use the same white pickup trucks that the farmers used for the guys running the oil rigs. And it finally dawned on me one day, why don't I just use my four-wheeler, or my Yamaha utility vehicle day in and day out, year-round, so when I go to hunt, it's no different to them.
Right.
That they're used to the noise. I don't wind it up any louder. I don't run it any faster. And to your point, it's just routine. It's like a deer living next to a highway, right? He's used to the cars going by. Now, all of a sudden, if cars don't go by, he's going to go, well, what's going on? So it was just a way that I could condition my deer to the general activity on the property, so when it came time to hunt, it wasn't all that different.
Right. That's a great lesson.
Yeah, conditioning.
Well,
it's like how many of these guides, bear guides like Saskatchewan, Alberta, see them in Maine too, right? Or even New Hampshire, they bang the bait barrel right after they put the bait in there.
Right.
And then the bears get used to, the noise of the four-wheeler coming in, the bait barrel being banged. Some of these guys go so far as to spray insect repellent around, so that way when the hunters hunt, and insect repellent, they don't feel that's a foreign scent to them, and it works.
Right. And the whitetail is so adapt to all that stuff. You can condition them, but you can also go against you, like you talked about with the buck, the squeaky fence. Yep. That will condition them as well. So I guess you just got to know what you're dealing with.
I was talking to a guy over at Kittery this weekend, and he's a very successful bow hunter. And last year he killed a double drop tine buck. Think about that for Maine. Double drop tine buck. Right. That doesn't happen very often.
No, that's a rare occurrence.
And this was like a solid 140, 145 type deer too, mature deer.
Okay.
And
this is by antler description, not weight. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Just wanted to specify that.
So I asked him, how did he kill this deer? I'm always interested in what people do. And he said, Greg, to be honest with you, I never thought I'd get the opportunity on this deer. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, he was so visible in the bachelor group early season. Everybody knew about this deer. I said, okay. Then he said, and the problem was, he said, where he was living, I had the access to the property that adjoined it, but that wasn't where the deer was living. I said, well, did you kill it during the rut? He said, nope. I said, so how'd you get this opportunity? And he said, the guys who had access to the property over-scouted the property. And when the season opened, the deer had already adjusted to them hanging tree stands and putting trail cameras and sitting out. And they were so excited about trying to find this deer that, this is before the season opened, that they had pressured the deer, and the deer just shifted 500 yards on another piece of property, created an opportunity for him.
Interesting. How did he decide that was what had unfolded? Was he watching the activities on the other piece kind of thing, or how did he realize
trail
that?
Cameras.
All trick. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
And I tell you, trail cameras, guys, are a blessing and a curse.
Right.
They give you hope. They give you information.
Right.
But first of all, they're not predictive.
Right.
Right. They just tell you what happened.
Right.
They only tell you what happened in front of you.
Right.
Right. So if a deer walks 10 feet to the right of the camera, guess what? You didn't get a picture of them.
Yep.
So a lot of times, if people don't see deer activity on the cameras or don't see the shooter buck, right?
Right.
Then they get discouraged. So, and sometimes people get so addicted, they're running the cameras every 2 or 3 days. I gotta go check my camera. Like, when did you put it out? 3 days ago. Really?
That's a big
So
no-no.
that's like a lobsterman dropping his pots and then running them an hour later.
Right.
You gotta let your cameras soak, and you run them in a trap line, you run them in different sequences, but you cannot overrun your cameras, and you gotta put them in areas that you can get in and you can get out with not bugging the animals. And if you can drive up to them on a four-wheeler, or you don't have to get off and put a lot of scent on the ground, and you can kind of contain your activities to the peripheral part of your property and not penetrate the center of it to spook those deer, you're so much better. But people nowadays, their curiosity kills them.
That is true. So these are all awesome tips.
And by the way, I learned that the hard way.
Sure. I think we all learn through our mistakes. I'm sure that we've all been in, but it's great to learn from others. And that's one of the points I wanted to touch on tonight, is that you're a student of others, it seems. Mm-hmm. You're constantly learning from others. Where does that come from?
I think some people just, that's who they are. That's their DNA.
Yeah.
And, if the only things I learned in life were those that I learned from my own experience, we would be just recreating the wheel every year, right?
Right.
So part of evolution is learning from others. And not just watching TV and professional hunters and reading books, and all that's great, right? But there's any time that you can talk to somebody and you can glean some little piece of information about, especially people who really diehard and passionate. It doesn't matter whether we're talking hunting or snowmobiling or, surfing for that matter, right? There's always an evolution in any sport or any activity, but learning from others, you amass all of that information and then you process that and go, what can I do that is going to positively affect the outcome of my activities?
Right.
And that's, and I'm blessed to have friends like Lee Lakoski and Mark Drury and Jay Gregory and, some of the best whitetail hunters out there, right?
Yeah.
And you take all of their experience, all their time in the field, and we all share notes with one another. I was just on the phone with Don and Candy Kiske the other day,
yep.
Talking about what's going on and little nuggets of information, that you can glean from these guys. Or, you have a Greg Miller who's been doing this 40 years and has written how many books?
Right.
And, we all have a style about us, but the biggest thing is whatever you do, you have to adapt the next year and not repeat it.
Right. Yep. Very well said. Now, Greg, you were the CEO of Thompson Center, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? What was it like being a CEO of a major gun manufacturer?
Big responsibility.
Yeah.
Here, I took on the leadership responsibility of Thompson Center and really the industry of muzzleloading, the sport of muzzleloading. And I felt, a duty to the industry to help work on seasons, increase opportunities, simplify the sport, introduce as many people to the sport of muzzleloading as possible. Because the more days that we can spend in a field, the better. And I will tell you, my biggest frustration in this industry, and I don't know how to get over this, guys. I really don't.
Okay.
Bow hunters fight gun hunters fight muzzleloader hunters hunters fight gun hunters. We tend to be a very selfish group of sportsmen that we want everything for ourselves, right? So you get diehard bow hunters. Oh, man, those gun hunters, all they do is just shoot all the deer out there. And then the gun hunters say, oh, those bow hunters, all they do is jack deer up and, wound them and they never recover them. And at the end of the day, we're all sportsmen. We're all trying to work for the same renewable resource and for the continued right to do what we want to do.
Right.
So if it's legal and it's ethical, let people make the decision. If a guy wants to shoot a longbow, absolutely. If a guy wants to shoot a flintlock, go at it. If a guy wants to shoot an AR-15 that's, we're not really like an AR-10, something that's,
sure.
Kind of these assault deer hunting rifles, who cares?
Right.
Right. And, that's his individual choice. And I'm really hoping, because now that I've been with Thompson Center on the gun side and Horton on the archery side and the sponsors that I have, I'm trying to find ways that we can rally around the bigger causes and not try to just worry about our own opportunities.
Right. We're all on the same team at the end of the day. There's a much larger fight to fight if we can all just band together out there. So
that's right. And divided, we will fail.
Absolutely. There's no question.
Yeah, agree to that.
Yep. Now, Greg, if you had to pick one, and this is a trick question probably in some shape or form, would you rather hunt with a gun or a bow?
I'm going to answer this, and I think I'm going to shock you. So,
okay.
Obviously, the question is, basically, what would be my weapon of choice if I could just pick one?
Yes, you can only pick one.
Right.
Yep.
A crossbow.
A crossbow.
A crossbow.
Well, that's a good answer. My goodness.
And the reason is I enjoy the intimacy of archery.
Yep.
Meaning I like the fact that I have to have the skill to get 50 yards or under. And there are some phenomenal crossbows out there. I'm shooting, Mission Archery's crossbow, and they have one now that goes 400 feet per second, right?
Wow.
I could probably stretch that to 80 yards. I don't need to. 50 yards is fine. So I like the intimacy of archery.
Yep.
But I'm also a gun guy at heart.
Right.
I like a trigger. I like a scope. I am really into precision. I like to split arrows. So when I shoot at something, it's not, I want to split a hair. And the accuracy that these crossbows deliver is great. And, there's a lot of advantage. If I'm hunting out of a ground blind, I don't have to worry about, confined spaces and drawing my bow. If it's late season, I got a lot of clothes on. There's not a lot of leaves on the trees. I'm worried about movement, So to me, the crossbow is phenomenal. It's a great way to segue women and kids into the sport.
Right.
And I taught all of my girls the proper way to shoot a firearm by training them on a crossbow.
Interesting.
There was no noise. There was no recoil. And it's a whole lot more fun to shoot 3D targets and pop balloons with an arrow.
Right.
But when I transitioned them, to an air rifle and then to a 22, now my oldest daughter to a muzzleloader, they handle it like a champ because they're used to the general skills it takes to shoot a gun, because a crossbow, except for the front end, looks like a gun.
Gotcha. That's a great answer to a difficult question, and you handled it up with precision, knowing that, and you do enjoy the precision. That was a great answer, Greg. I love that. Just awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to take that in consideration, being a father of 3 young girls myself, and that's a great way to look at it.
Very cool.
There is something about introducing kids to the sport of shooting with a bow. They like the fact that when you shoot an arrow, you can see exactly where you hit.
Right.
I like to use lighted nocks for kids because it's more interactive to them.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and you can shoot 3D targets. You know, I put balloons up, and when they get better, I put playing cards up and I play games.
Yep.
And you just go to the dollar store and buy playing cards, right? So just randomly, you know, put them up on a block style target, and then each of my girls gets a shot and I get a shot, and we play for Jolly Ranchers.
That's awesome.
So whoever has the highest card gets a Jolly Rancher. So then we kind of barter and trade, and they got the purple and I got the green and I got 4 and you got 3, but it's fun. And and again, we're teaching, you know, the kids skills and all the general safety precautions that you have to learn, both with a firearm and a bow.
Right. Greg, are you a competitive person by nature? Do you let your kids win?
I'm a competitive person, absolutely.
Yeah,
so all of my kids understand. By the way, I shoot left-handed, you know, to give them an opportunity here.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But all of my kids understand winning and losing, and that you have to strive to improve. So I think you guys know, with the sport of shooting, it's an individualistic sport.
Right.
So it's not really, are you better than somebody else? Are you better today than you were a month ago? And tomorrow, will you be better than you are today?
Right.
And so I really try to work with all my kids on progressing their talents and showing them that it is really about continuous improvement in life.
Gotcha. That is a great answer, and spoken like a CEO. That's awesome. Yeah, but it's true. Well, I mean, you're competitive, and you always want to teach your kids to grow and get better and understand how life really should be. And but you must be a bit competitive in a sense outside of the teaching side. I mean, when you're face to face with a challenge, you got to have it. Is that you?
Yeah, I think innately everybody enjoys some form of winning, right?
Yeah.
And winning is often defined by what your own personal goals are.
Right.
And they could be fitness related, they can be spiritual related, they can be hunting related, they can be work related. But I think everybody has to have something loftier in their life that they're striving for, because I think they give you a sense of accomplishment and really fuels your well-being.
Right. Absolutely. Greg, you're working on becoming a master storyteller. How's it going?
Well, you know, I've been blessed with meeting a lot of great people and being able to lead some really good organizations. And I think what you guys are doing here with the podcast is fantastic. You've got a great collection of talented people in the industry, and you're spreading the word. And I certainly appreciate your contribution to the industry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We're having a good time, and we're meeting a lot of extremely interesting people that I never thought we would ever meet, just being the average hunter watching TV. Dusty, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and the things that we're learning, not only for Jay and I, but the listeners and everybody that joins in with the Big Buck Registry, you know, that's why we're here. You know, we're talking to Gregg Ritz because we want to learn more to take our hunt to the next level. And that's what it's all about, trying to spread the information and one hunter to another and become a community of hunters, no matter if you're a bow hunter, a gun hunter, a pistol hunter, you know, it doesn't matter. Let's all join together, unite, and learn something for everybody as we go.
Absolutely. Greg?
Absolutely. Well, you know, guys, I'd love to join you again. We should plan something, you know, maybe after hunting season where we can, tell some tall tales and relay some stories from the previous month, because I think this year, the way things are shaping up with the weather patterns and the good rain and it looks like we're going to have a good harvest year, there should be some giant whitetails taken this year.
Absolutely. Yep. It's going to be a little different than it has been, I think.
And hopefully we're not going to be faced with any EHD cases like we had the last couple.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully the rain keeps that out of the streams and stuff and gets that gone.
Greg, I have a few questions from our audience. Do you mind if I run down those real quick with you?
Absolutely.
Very cool. All right. Let's see. Josh Fox. Why is it every time your show comes on the Outdoor Channel, it's a rerun of him killing the caribou buck?
Well, I'll answer this saying this Monday,
Yep.
June 30th on the Outdoor Channel, the all new episodes of Hunt Masters begin. And, we've really have refaced the show, start to finish, completely new. And we've taken the show a little bit different direction. And I'm really excited for the fans to be introduced to the new concept this Monday.
Can you give us some details about the new concepts?
Absolutely. So my idea on what Hunt Masters should be, I don't profess to be a professional. I don't profess to be a Hunt Master myself. But I am now searching the world for who are the Hunt Masters. These are the guides, the outfitters, the indigenous people, the local heroes, if you will. And, and it may be in Pennsylvania that I find, some guy in Allentown who happens to be the local big buck expert. Or, it might be, an Aleut on the Aleutian Islands hunting reindeer for that species. And, I think to tell their story, to introduce people to other, call them Hunt Masters or professionals in their own right around the world is really what I'm hoping to convey. And then, of course, show people some great, cinematography and some beautiful landscape on what all the opportunities that we have to hunt in North America and around the world, because we are blessed, guys, with more hunting opportunities today than our grandfathers were.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. And we should take advantage of it as hunters. That's so true. Absolutely true. This one's from Stefan Olney. When late season muzzleloader hunting, what's the best way to get wiry bucks to come into range after a long season? Got any tips on that one, Greg?
Well, we talked, quite a bit on pressure. And by late season muzzleloader, these deer are well educated. There's just no question. And the work that you do pre-season is going to determine your success late season. So right now, I have plans to head out to my farms in Illinois last week of July, and I'm going to be putting in my food plots. And these food plots, are going to be planted with oats, winter rye, turnips, clover, and alfalfa. And the reason for that is I am going to utilize that food source late season. I'm not going to hunt them. I'm not going to pressure the deer early season. I'm going to let the deer feel secure and safe and provide them the nutrition when they're rutted down, they're all skin and bones. But I'm going to wait until the temperatures are brutal cold before I hunt these deer. Because when the deer have to eat, the colder it is, the nastier it is. So, but I'm going to put the work in early. I'm going to put my ground blinds in early, because I'm typically late season, not a big tree stand fan, just because there's no leaves on the tree, and a lot of times you get big groups of deer at one time come in. So if I'm trying to kill a mature deer that's been educated all season, I want him to know you're safe here, and what's going to drive him to move in the daylight are just brutal temperatures, which means I got to man up during those days and sit out there when it's sub-zero.
Gotcha. So off limits, keep some sanctuary out there for your late season.
Yep.
Got it. All right. One other question from the audience here. How do you make it big time in the hunting industry? This is from Zach Jenkins.
I think that might be the number one or number two question that I get asked,
Right.
when I do appearances. There are a lot of opportunities to participate in this industry.
Right.
And virtually anybody who has a passion to be in this industry can find their following. And that might be working retail, working for a distributor, that might be working for a manufacturer on an assembly line, might be a marketing manager, or, it could be a celebrity, doing a television show.
Right.
And we're fortunate today to have such an opportunity with social media to create a presence or awareness for ourselves in today's community.
Right.
We have the ability to post videos on YouTube. We're able to build our own little social communities around our own personal brand. And anybody who aspires to be on television, it's challenging. There are 400 television shows out there, and, we're probably overserved with programming. But I will tell you that if you're yourself, you're unique in some form or fashion, you can find an opportunity in this industry on the television side.
Right. Would you say that or is it fair to say that it's not going to come pick you? You have to go get it. Is that fair?
No question. If you really sat down, and I wish this could happen at a Harrisburg or something, and you took a Ralph and Dickey, and you took a Mark and Terry Drew, and you took a Lee and Tiffany Lakoski, and a Michael Waddell or Jim Shockey, all of us, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm on my 17th year doing television.
Right. It's a long time doing
17
TV,
years.
right?
And everybody started, Michael Waddell started, as a cameraman at Realtree. Lee and Tiffany Lakomsky, Lee was writing articles for Bowhunter magazine and working in an archery shop. He was a chemical engineer, and he took the gamble to move to Iowa. And of course, Tiffany, agreed also. And she was a flight attendant to try to, carve out some type of living in the industry. Mark and Terry Drury the same way. They started Mad Calls. Jim Shockey started as an outdoor writer and a guide on Vancouver Island for black bears.
Right.
I don't think any one of those people ever, if you look back 20, 30 years ago when they started, said, you know what, I'm going to be I'm going to be a top celebrity on television today.
Right.
What they said is, how can I be involved in a sport that I'm so passionate about? And yeah, I need to make a living, but I just want to have fun.
Right.
And things unfold over time. So I think people sometimes their goals are too lofty for where they are in their position in life, and they need to eat the elephant, if you will, in one bite at a time. And get involved in the industry and get started, but work hard. That's what our industry rewards you with.
Right. Very, very well said.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm going to jump in, Greg. If you got a quick minute,
Yeah.
I'm on the story side of the Big Buck Registry. If you got time, I want to hear your most memorable, most awesomest whitetail hunt you've ever been on. Can you run us through it?
Well, I can tell you about a whitetail hunt that was extremely memorable to me, and it did. It resulted in the kill of a nice whitetail, but not the kill of an extraordinary whitetail. And it just so happens that you're going to be able to watch this unfold on television this year.
Awesome.
Cool. All right.
So I went to Iowa. I own some ground with Lee and Tiffany out there, and we've worked together to build some of these farms and really manage them well. And I was excited, that I was finally drew an Iowa bow tag, which takes 2 or 3 years, and I was going out during the rut. So anyway, I was hunting in Illinois and, just kind of waiting until the rut was really going to kind of kick in, and it was early November. It's about November 4th, I think, or 5th, and things are really slow in Illinois. I mean, like, definitely slow. It's like slack tide. So I knew we were a day or two, and I called Lee up. I said, Lee, what's going on over there? I said, should I just slide over to Iowa? It's an hour and a half away. He said, Greg, things are kind of slow here, but he said, I think we're a day or two away, so why don't you come on over? Okay. Get in the truck and drive over, trailer the Yamaha, and all excited, get in, and, and of course, anyone who's around Lee knows that, you're going to look through trail camera photos every night. I mean, thousands of them. When you have 8,000 acres that you manage and you have 200 cameras up, it's a full-time job looking at trail camera pictures, which is fun. So we go through and kind of put a strategy together, get up the next morning, go out to the stand. And I'm embarrassed to tell you this. I had hunted the evening before. I was hunted the evening before in Illinois, and when we packed up the truck, we left right from the field, and I hitched the Yamaha onto the trailer. I put my bow on the ground, and I left it there.
Oh,
So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So we drive all the way back, right? So I missed that morning's hunt. Drive all the way back. My bow's still sitting on the edge of the road. Thank God, right? Nice Matthews bow. I'm sure somebody would have loved to have that.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
UAD rest and a HHA sight on there. I mean, it was a tack driver. So I get the bow. I'm like, you know what? Why don't we, I'm talking to my cameraman at this point, Alex. I said, you know what? Let's go run a couple cameras on this side of the farm. I said, we've blown our morning hunt. So we go out. We're standing at a camera on the edge of a cornfield, and the timber starts, big cedar thicket, and it just erupts with deer. So inside of 12 hours, the rut went full tilt. There are bucks chasing does. There's 6 or 7 different bucks. We had a big 140-inch 10-point come from behind us as we're watching deer in front of us to run right by.
Oh, wow.
Like we weren't even standing there. And of course, I've got my bow now, but guess what? I didn't bring my backpack and my release.
Of course you didn't.
Of course. And of course, the cameraman didn't have his camera. So we watched this and we're like, okay, well, let's get back to Iowa. So we got back to Iowa, sat in a tree stand that night and filmed 260-inch deer. And these could be 165, 2 big deer for 15 minutes in a knockdown, dragged out fight. Blood coming out, locked horns, flipping each other upside down. We filmed it in high speed. You'll be able to watch it this fall. It is extraordinary.
I can't wait to see this.
Experience.
Oh, man.
Oh, it was just, and to me, what hunting about is the accumulation of all the experiences. Is not the end result of a great experience in hunting is not death. And if you feel that the only success that you get out of a hunt is walking up to a dead animal, you better pick a different sport.
Right. It's interesting you say that. Yeah.
So we filmed that. We watched that. We sat there the next night. The victor came out, and we're like, oh, this is fantastic, right? And he's walking down the field. He's getting closer. And we're filming him. And a 3-year-old deer that, I don't know, it's maybe a 130-inch deer comes out. This deer turns around, hightails it out of there. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He was a victor yesterday. Now he's running away from a 3-year-old.
Huh. Interesting.
So just a couple days later, the weather turns. It's brutal cold. The wind is 30 miles an hour. Snow's coming down, and these giant white flakes. We were hunting some standing beans. There's a dozen does and fawns out in this bean field, and we're like, you know what? The weather conditions are going on. Something's got to happen. And out comes a giant 5x6, 170-inch deer.
Mm.
And he
Does
goes
he have a name?
from every single doe and fawn and starts checking them.
No way.
And it's incredible. And wait to see the footage of this. Because again, we shot it in high speed and the snow coming down, and this deer is just magnificent. And so he's checking, and we're filming all of this, and he comes into 20 yards, and he stops like a 3D target, and turns his head away from us, and my cameraman goes, I'm on him.
Nice. That's
and
it.
he goes,
Nice words
Greg,
to hear.
I'm on him. Kill him. I'm like, no. He goes, what do you mean no? I said, he's 3 years old. And he goes,
right.
You think if you were really cares?
Right.
And,
did the camera get beamed over the side of your head when you said no?
Yeah, it exactly. Oh, trust me, I got the rolled eyes and the WTF from them.
Right.
But you know what? It's the commitment that I've made and I subscribe to with Lee and Tiffany that we're going to hunt mature deer. And it doesn't matter what the antler size is. It could be a 130-inch deer, but it has to be in that 5.5-year-old age class.
Right.
So we let that deer go, which is heartbreaking. And then 2 days later, last day of the hunt, we're hunting on, a alfalfa and clover plot. Arrow seed makes a fantastic mix called Full Potential. We knew that, okay, now that the snow's gone, temperatures have warmed up, they're going to be back on the green. So we're sitting in this little cedar tree in the corner of this field, and we weren't sitting there long. We saw just like this deer cut the end of the field, and we're like, that was a buck? Was it a good buck? What was it? And it just kind of disappeared. And 2 other does came out, but it was really slow. And we're like, this is the last night of the hunt, and they only get drawn every 3 years on an Iowa tag. So really kind of at a low point. And so we're like, well, sun's going down, and we're down to the last 2 minutes of light, and the cameraman says, well, why don't we just close the show out here and just tell the viewers, hey, we had a great hunt, and it just wasn't meant to be. So the cameraman turns the camera to me, and I turn to the camera and start yapping, and he goes, big buck, big buck. And I look at him, and I go, what? And I look over my shoulder, just at the end of this field, about 120 yards away, there's this buck just cutting the corner of the field, the same route that we saw another deer go 3 hours earlier. I reached down to my left and I slapped my antlers, my rattling antlers. All I do is I just slap and they just tickle themselves together, and the deer jerks his head up. And the cameraman now, he's focused on me 120 yards away. I take my hand, I tickle them together. Well, he turns around 180 degrees and starts marching in.
Wow.
And, this is a beautiful 10-pointer, great 5.5-year-old deer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a 150-inch deer. And so I ended up rattling and calling this deer in to 25 yards and shooting with my bow with 30 seconds of light left on the last day of the hunt.
Wow. Awesome story.
Wow.
And,
phenomenal.
And again, I didn't want to end with, hey, we killed a great deer. It was all of those experiences of this trip, the highs and the lows and the passes and the buck fight that really made that entire trip probably my most memorable whitetail experience.
Right. It's the whole package. It's every event that occurred during those days. It's amazing. Awesome.
That's like that's hunting that everybody dreams of.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember my reaction. I turn back to the camera and go, what just happened? I mean, we were literally closing out the show. We had, I don't want to say given up, but we've kind of, just said that was it, put a period at the end of the story. And fortunately, the story had one more chapter left.
That's awesome. I love that. So, Greg, you surrounded yourself with some great people. You're a student of others, and you're learning from others. Tell us a little bit about Wildcom before we let you go.
So when I left Smith & Wesson, I spent a couple of years there, as I told you, as president of the Long Gun Division, and my contract was up in Knoll. I enjoyed being a entrepreneur. I like to build companies. I like to support people, and living in that environment, which, is very successful, over 3,000 employees and a $600 million company now.
Yep.
I like to build things. And I said, you know what? We as an industry really need somebody from an outdoor marketing and media perspective to help represent the talent, start evolving the content of the show. So we're just not about killing things. We're storytellers.
Right.
And to find other ways to activate the industry to promote this great sport. And so I started Wildcom. And I'm proud to say we have 13 television shows, some of the top talent in the industry. And we work with, guys, I bet just 300 companies in our industry in some form or fashion. And that really is rewarding to me to feel that I can contribute. And my team is really, I gotta say, the success of Wildcom is my team. It's not me. They do all the hard work. And I think, we contribute in some small way to a lot of people in this industry, and I think we're making a difference.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Absolutely.
When I saw Sean's, and I want to give a shout out to Sean for setting this up, but it was great to see a 603 area code come through, and I was like, no way, this is awesome. So I appreciate
well,
that.
It's certainly nice to be on home turf. There's no doubt about that. And Sean's a great example of somebody who has extraordinary talent, but was really never exposed to the outdoor industry,
right?
From a hunting perspective. And now to see her passion to shoot bows and shoot guns, and the constant nagging we get in the office of, what am I doing? And so it's nice that we have another advocate for our industry in-house at Wildcom.
Right. So at Wildcom, you get to hang out with some pretty cool talent. You have a great team, great staff. You hang out with Michael Waddell, and you developed a bone collector. I believe you told a story about shooting at the range, as I recall, and where you coined the term bone collector that day. And you're hanging out with Willie Robertson as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, really, all the people in our community, we're all great friends. Yeah. And we're all there to support one another. And so whether it's Jim Shockey, who's hanging off a mountainside in Tibet, or whether it's Willie, crushes some ducks down in Louisiana, we all find times to share stories. And of course, we work a lot of promotions together, and we put a lot of long hours in. But it's nice to see the reward from the level of participation we see, from all the people in the industry now.
And the fascinating thing about Willie, and I think you'll agree, is that he's a great outdoorsman, but he's also a super sharp businessman.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's Willie. He has found a unique blend of working hard and being very successful at business, but making it fun. Right. And so being around him, he's a prankster. He's always smiling, and he's one of these guys that doesn't take himself too seriously. But he's always a hard charging guy, and I respect that, because people enjoy being in his presence.
That's awesome. Well, Gregg, this has been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on our show. And thanks for just spending an hour with us, just kind of talking deer hunting and some tips on all kinds of things. And we'd love to have you back again sometime.
Well, let's plan it, guys. Like I said, something after season. We'll share some of our stories from the fall. And again, thank you for this opportunity. And good luck with everything that you're doing. And I appreciate your contribution to the industry.
Well, that's fantastic. How can we reach you to reach out, watch your shows? Check out the new Hunt
The best way to stay in touch with me is through social media, through Facebook, through Twitter. Now I even have Instagram accounts and everything else out there. So,
oh my goodness.
We try to put in all the previews for the shows coming up, because we have the all new series, as I mentioned, starting on Monday. So, check out the Facebook and the Twitter, and or you can just log on to the huntmasters.com website.
Gotcha.
And kind of find out what's going on new with me on a daily basis.
Very cool. Well, we will be watching from afar through the Facebook, social media, and I guarantee it, we will be sharing lots of your footage on the Big Buck Registry. Great. Because it's just awesome stuff.
We appreciate it, guys, and good luck this fall. So stay in touch and send me some pictures of some big deer.
Absolutely, Gregg. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Dusty, now and then you meet individuals in this industry that we talk to on the podcast or at a show or whatever, and they just kind of blow you away. That kind of happened to me tonight.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm speechless, but I'm soaking it all in.
There's so much to absorb. That guy knows everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
He knows everybody.
You know, he's a Rolodex.
He really is.
Of information for the whitetail woods. And that, you know, that's what we're digging for to have join us here at the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast. And that we'll definitely see Gregg in the future on the show. And we're going to learn some more.
Yeah, I'd spend hours with that guy just learning from him. I mean, you can tell he spent so much time studying the mistakes of others and the stories of others and successes of others, not just in the hunting industry, but in the business world too, that if you could, I'd like him to be my mentor. You know, that says a lot. I have a lot of respect for Gregg Ritz.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and thank you, Gregg, for joining us and for the information that you released to us. That will definitely. I know that Gregg is going to help thousands of hunters that listen to the show take their hunt to the next level.
Yeah, well, I made a lot of notes while we talked to Gregg. I know that.
I got a whole page.
I got
absolutely
a page and a half, but. Man, that was awesome. So, well, thank you to Gregg again. It was a great honor to have you on the show. Love to have you back after deer season, tell some more just awesome stories. And hopefully you won't forget to bring your bow home next time because, man, that's a prize just sitting there waiting for you on the side of the road. So,
absolutely.
Man.
Can you imagine if you're driving down the road and there's a bow laying there that belonged to Gregg Ritz?
I know. But write your name on it, Gregg.
Yeah.
Just put your name on it.
Yeah, you know, because a rightful hunter would return it to you.
Absolutely. And I think if it were a hunter that picked it up, yes. But there are probably many others that don't even care, that would just hawk it somewhere. So you'd probably find it. Like that antler that was stolen out of the town office there that Ed Wade had talked about.
Yeah, definitely. I got an email on that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was a great story, a great ending.
Great story. And we actually, through the Big Buck Registry, and I think you posted it too, we actually helped to recover that antler as the story goes.
Yeah, that was cool. You know,
right.
That was one of them things where it was a group participation and it turned out a great end result.
Yep. You cannot outrun the passion and the dedication of hunters on social media these days. You just can't do it. So, Gregg, if you leave your bow out there and somebody takes it, don't worry, we'll get it back. We have a great mechanism. So that just my 2 cents worth. So anyway.
Absolutely.
Yep. Dusty, how can we reach you over at Chubby Tines Outdoors?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. And, you know, definitely look us up, get in touch with us, shoot us a picture, harvest, trail camera. You know, we always like seeing what is up and coming. You know, velvet racks are out right now, and we love to see them, you know, and we enjoy it. So thank you for everybody that sends pictures in. Jay, how can people get in touch with you at the Big Buck Registry?
Big Buck Registry. You can touch base with us at their general main website. Our blog is bigbuckregistry.com. If you'd like to submit a picture, we have a great new mechanism over at the Big Buck Registry. We used to get a lot through Facebook, but we're finding that we couldn't really keep up with it, and by means, and what I mean by that is we couldn't keep responding because we were getting so many of them, because people were forgetting to put what state the harvest was in, or they'd send us a picture of just the buck and not them and the buck, stuff like that. So we made a specialty page at bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. You go there, all the instructions are right there waiting for you on how to submit a picture. You can upload, you can tag a photo with a URL, you enter your name. There's a drop down right there for the state, and send it in. And if all else fails, there's an email address right there. Open up the email, attach the picture, and again, just don't forget the state, because it's super important to us about where these deer are coming from and what's happening in your state and the health of the herd in that state. That's kind of what this is all about. Granted, you get to be famous for a day because we're going to post it on our Facebook page, which now has about 100,000 followers. So people will know about your deer for sure. And then you may get calls from like Field and Stream and Big Buck Magazine. There's all kinds of great things that happen when people see what you're doing. So, but anyway, bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. If you'd like to leave feedback for the show, 724-613-2825 is our phone number. You can text in a photo there. Give us a call, feedback about the show, questions, whatever you want to do. And if you want to just shoot me an email, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. I think that's about it, Dusty. Just awesome show. Just learned a lot from Gregg, and Gregg, thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gregg, and we look forward to talking to you in the future. And thank you for the listeners that's tuning in right now.
Absolutely. I'm Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
This is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. See you next week.
Can't wait.